thank you for being here. I appreciate you hanging out with us. I also appreciate you kind of fumbling some of the technical difficulties, but such is life in this century, and that's okay. So our workshop today is Know Your Audience, Market Research in Action. I work for an agency called Adeptus Marketing. We're out of Regina. We do work across the company, or work across the country. We do kind of like your regular agency type work. We tend to like clients that work with us to solve their problems. So we don't do a lot of like design specific stuff only. We tend to like to chomp on like entire client problems. And you'll see, I give quite a few examples in this presentation, and we work with kind of everyone. We work with engineering firms, we work with not-for-profits, we work with retail operations, we work with people that are inventing new things, kind of all scope across every industry. The fun part about that for me is that I get to learn constantly new jobs and what people do and what things are happening in our world. And the great thing about that is that we can use our expertise to help other people solve their problems. And that part's fun because like, as I was planning for this, I'm like, I'm going to be in a room with a lot of really smart people. And that's when good stuff comes to happen, is when smart people put their brains together. All right. Okay, I always just put this up here. I told everyone that we were going to do today. And I said, I think everyone is in the room, that I did a webinar about a month ago on the same topic, and they are meant to be completely different things. My original assumption was that people would have seen the webinar and that they were going to attend this workshop. But my assumption was incorrect. So what I've done is made sure that I'm capturing some of the stuff that I had in that webinar at the outset of this workshop, so that we're all starting from kind of the same point of knowledge when we're working through this stuff. So my goals for today, I hope our shared goals are, one is demystify market research. Often in that world when we say market research, that immediately like is price tag rolling for people, because there is market research that can be done that like starts at $50,000 kind of thing. So I put demystify there because we do it a lot for clients that can't necessarily afford a $50,000 price tag just to start somewhere. And we do it in overt and subtle ways, and I'm going to give you examples, but my whole intention was to make sure that this is accessible to people in our province, the women in our province that will use it. Learn market research methods through examples. So I put a bunch of examples in here that hopefully I was kind of asking people what kind of business do they work in that overlap some of the worlds that all of you work companies in. And then use our combined genius. So I'm going to ask you to talk to one another and help one another. It's always a big ask for me. It's like, oh, it's 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Sorry, I'm going to ask you to do more work, but it is called a workshop. So I wanted to plant that seed now and prepare you for that later. And what we want to walk away with that I outset of here. What is research? I put in here the different kinds of research, the relevant examples. I wanted to give you a place of where you can get started to gather information, and then I want you to be able to walk away with an actual plan of how to do research to solve a part of your business. And what I really, really want was to make it accessible and possible for everyone that's in here, especially if you're chomping on something right now. Does that sound good? Thanks. This is a leading question in surveying. I just prompted you all to give me a positive response. It's not how you should survey, but if you want to tell people to give you what they want, that's great. Okay, we already did our quick survey around, and if you missed it, I shot a video at the request of Wesk to promote this up. And as I was crawling up from my kitchen table, I was thinking, people are going to notice that I'm sitting on the counter in my socks and then I have feet on the table. And that's either going to be like a positive reaction or a negative reaction for some people. And it turns out one person saw the video and they didn't have a reaction at all, which is great. That's great feedback. That is not statistically significant feedback, but it's good information. Okay, I started here in the webinar and I want to start here in the workshop around what is market research, because like I said, that often triggers like, oh, it's got to be a double-blind study going with peer review and like go past a board. And if any of you work in the science world, a place that I do not work in, obviously when you do research in that world, it is way more stringent. In our world, market research is as simple as just gathering information from potential customers. And as I was reflecting on this, I was like, it's not even potential customers, it's just gathering information from the market. So the people that might be your customers, the people that aren't your customers, it's just like the gathering of information. And we're going to talk about how to gather information and how to do it and examples of it. But at the base level, it is just gathering information. So there are types of market research. We often talk about primary and secondary research. So primary this is you gathering the research yourself, and that's what I'm going to cover today, and that's what we're going to talk about. Secondary is someone else has done it and you're using their research. So that's when you can pull research straight up, just Googling, or like seeing what your competitors are doing. Or there are places where you can pull reports of things in your industry. That's secondary research. We're gonna focus on primary, gathering the research yourself. And then in here, I just put the three most common types, quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative is like the really hard data, just numbers. One person out of 15 saw my video, full stop. And then qualitative is a little bit more subjective. This many people watched the Only West thing, and this person saw the video, and this is their feelings around it, and this is what they were doing that day when they were scrolling social media. A little bit more information about what is happening, people's opinions. In our world, we will often do both, and I have that as the combining. We will survey a group of people, and then we will interview a sample set of them, a predetermined sample set, not making sure not leading ourselves to any specific answers, but we do a lot of qualitative interviewing. In that video, I said that you would learn about what kitchen marketing is as I was sitting on my kitchen counter with a microphone. We often call this kitchen marketing because of the thing I said at the start. When you talk about market research, people see price tags and they see complex problems and they see all this potential work that needs to be done. But we often walk it back to kitchen marketing, and that's the idea of just like sitting around in a kitchen asking people questions and talking to them and having a conversation and understanding where they're coming from and what they like and don't like and why they buy things and why they don't buy things, and kind of simplifying this problem down to something simple, because we even see it in our world where we do this all the time. People really make problems more complex than they need to be, or questions more complex than they need to be. I think that's a smart people thing, which is like, it's great, but it's always a problem is we often overcomplicate things. And often it's like, well, why don't we just call a few people and ask them? Why don't we just start somewhere? And we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you examples, and then we're going to work through just starting somewhere. So how many of you have done any sort of market research that you know about? I'm just curious. You can just see the people with, we got like, you probably have all done it somehow, maybe informally. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about different market research methods, and then I'm gonna share examples, and we're gonna talk about what methods were in each of them and what we were hoping to get out of them. So a great market research method is just straight up observation and just viewing people. I did some work for a retail store, and they had a bunch of chains across 3 provinces, and I went and just sat in one of the retail stores because I had no clue about like the interactions that were happening between staff and the people that walked in the door. I worked in software. I mentioned that at the start, and one of the observation ways we used observation was we watched people digitally doing what they were doing on our website. So we had software that was on the website that recorded every session that a user had. And then I would just sit and watch people use the internet and use like our software and see what they did. Because we'd made a bunch of assumptions about how people were using things, and we were testing to see if we were right or not. Focus groups is one. Focus groups is one of the ones that are used a lot in like really formal market research. That's finding a group of people, bringing them in, you have a facilitator, and you have an intention of what you want to get out of them in a certain time period. Often the people that are in there are rewarded in some way, like they're paid or they get free food or something like, or they're friends of the person trying to do the research. As a focus group. Interviewing is what we kind of do a lot when it comes to like qualitative interviews, just talking to people. Surveying, that is somewhat self-explanatory. That can either be like pen and pencil. We do it a lot through like Google Forms. It can also just be like, you check out of a business. Did you enjoy your experience today? Yes or no? And then A/B testing, we do this a lot in the digital world. And this is, you see this sometimes in like the retail world or the service offering world, where you offer one group, one standardized group, one standardized group B, and you see which performs better. So I have an example of that, but I use that a lot in digital because we make all these assumptions about what things work. And I'm like, well, we're just making assumptions. Let's test it and let's see what people want more than one or the other. Does that make sense? Okay, where to start? And I'm gonna hold y'all accountable to hold me accountable to these to make sure I cover these in all of these examples. So we always try to define and just distill it down to, what do we want to know? Who do we want to know it from? And we always try to push into like some sort of assumption or hypothesis or guess at the starting point. And we push it down to like that narrowed idea, because if we were like, if it was, is this business idea profitable? Well, that's just like such a huge problem to tackle. But if you're narrowing it down to, if I offer this service at this dollar, the amount, is this audience willing to pay for it? Or if you have the audience narrowed down, you know that people want the service, you can test the pricing. If you narrow it down to something, a very, very niche or very, very narrowed assumption, it's easier to get good data back. And we always kind of push into an assumption, because then you can check it as you go. And I'll give you examples that will make sense by the end. And it'll be easier once I work through these. So I'm always like, what do we want to know? Who do we want to know it from? And then what do we think we're going to get out of this? And how can we figure out what method to use in order to get the answer to this? All right. I'm going to put this slide up a lot and at the end, and I have it up in my notes in the left to make sure I'm constantly checking back in it. Okay, so this is 2020. We ran a campaign for the Saskatchewan Construction Association. How this problem was proposed to us was, there were a lot of people concerned that construction was happening in the province while things were shutting down. A lot of people were calling their offices worried about construction being opened. And they came to us, we worked with them at the time, and they were like, we need to do something about this. Construction is very important to our province. Okay, cool, but is it safe? Yes, it was. All of that kind of stuff. I'm truncating some of this message, but they were like, we need to talk to people to keep construction open. And we're like, okay, you're saying people are calling. Who are the people calling, and what are they concerned about? So we had to distill it down to those two messages and then completely figure out a marketing strategy around that. But we needed to first understand who these people were and what they were concerned about. So the first step we took in this place was interviewing. This was a very fast turnaround. It was a very tight thing that was happening in our world. Obviously, a lot at that time was very quick moving, and people were responding to things as quickly as they could with the least information possible. So Brita, the owner of our company, and I just started calling anyone we knew that was in the construction industry. Literally just like, who else do I know? I'm just going to call people. It was like, where can we start here? I just need the basic information. What are these people concerned about? And we asked the client, who's calling? And they told us the majority of the people that were calling were women. And one of the things we knew about the assessments from the Construction Association was the audience there, the people that are working in construction, is predominantly men. So we're like, who are these women calling? Why are they calling? And then we started to be like, are these the partners? So this is an assumption. Are these the partners of the people that are going to work and they're concerned? So we started building an assumption. And what are they concerned about? Well, why would they want construction shut down? Why are they concerned about their partners going to work? Probably concerned about safety because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So we started building an assumption that it's the partners of the people working construction that are concerned about the safety of where the partners are going to work. So then we kept calling people just to essentially qualitative interview, ask questions, and started getting further along in our assumption. I called a friend of mine, her husband worked in construction, and I asked her, are you concerned about Ryan going to work? What's happening at work? And she started telling me all the safety protocols that his company was were doing to make sure that they were safe from COVID. And I was like, oh, and they're a couple unlike many couples. She wouldn't be calling an office worried about him. So we started further building on our assumption that these women that were calling were concerned about their partners, and the partners weren't sharing what was actually happening. They weren't telling their partners about all the safety things that were happening on site. Because then when we talked to the Construction Association, they're like, oh, these are actually all the rules that people have to follow, or they're in violation of whatever rules they have, kind of thing. So we got further and further along. We made this assumption, and then we tested it through a campaign because they needed a campaign out. This was a Saturday morning. They needed it out Monday. We don't usually turn around things that fast, but this was a special case. So with that assumption, we were like, we need to tell the women that are calling that things are happening things are happening safe, and we need to tell the construction workers what is happening so that they have language to share with the people around them. So we ended up with an entire campaign from that, and it was all around the language so the partners could hear, oh, here are all the things that are happening, and so the construction workers could see, oh, this is what I can say when someone asks me what's going on. I have to stay 6 feet away. There's staggered shifts. There's extra PPE. There's mandatory hand washing, all that kind of stuff. So that's an example of something that was like incredibly successful. No one knew it happened because the construction in Saskatchewan didn't shut down. But it was incredibly successful because of quick market research and very straightforward market research. Nothing overly complex. We didn't involve large focus groups or anything like that. But we started with, who are these people? What do we want to know from them? And what is the assumption that we can make that we can test here? I work with a local cleaning company, and she's doing a great job. She keeps hiring new staff. We keep having to moving meetings because she's training more and more staff. But she was wanting to, she got a grant to use our services. So we were like, how can you best use our services? Let's run some digital ads for you. So we were like, I want to create brand awareness that you exist, because if someone's looking for a cleaning company, this is an assumption, they're looking for a cleaning company, and how do we, at least among my friends, this is again an assumption, you just ask your friends for recommendations. Or maybe you see an ad a bunch of times and then you Google them. So I worked with her to figure out, okay, who are these people who are booking your services? So we narrowed it down to women between the age of 25 and 55. At least she knew that much. She knew it was almost exclusively women booking her services. And then she knew that there were a few hotspots in Regina that women were booking her services from. And so we ran a campaign for her, and we used information that she already had, and then we were able to A/B test the locations that the potential customers were in to see if one was more successful than the other. So we tested 2 areas. We targeted women between the ages of 25 and 55, and at the same time we tested different images on both audiences to see if something would, and different language in the ads to see if something would perform better than the other. And what we discovered in the first half of the campaign was that there was no difference between the area, but we figured out what ads perform better. So then we've just now since combined the ads, and she's testing a new area. But we had to start with, okay, let's narrow this down. We don't want to just target the whole world. We assume it's women, and she knew that because she takes all the bookings. She knows where her most loyal customers that are repeat bookers are located. So we narrowed it down to this is where the people are. And then we wanted to know, okay, where can we find more people like this? And then the photos were another interesting thing. Apparently people respond very well if you're in the cleaning industry to an image of a yellow glove. That really resonates. I thought she had very different ads, like before and after, clean sparkly home, a video ad, which tends to usually perform very well, which didn't. It was just the photo of this yellow glove scrubbing that performed way better than anything else. The potion bar is an example of a business that's also local to Regina. She has a skincare business on 13th Avenue. It's Korean skincare. She does a very good job. She's got lots of products if you're a skincare person. But her problem was she was like, I need more people coming in here. Why aren't people visiting us? She had great engagement online. She had a previous skincare business where she had a lot of engaged customers. She wanted to convert them to in-store traffic. So the first thing I did was straight up observation. I went and sat in her and worked for like half a day. And people started coming in. They're like, oh, I've always wondered what this was, but I never visited. Or people were like, oh, I finally found you. I've been following you on Instagram for like 6 months and now I'm finally here. So I started building an assumption just from that observation and asking the people in store some questions that people either didn't know what her store was, they were in the area because that area is a high traffic area for like walkable shopping. So it was like people is, or they drive past it and don't know what they are, or they know that she exists in our city, but they don't know where she is. Because I could hear people say, oh, I've been following you on Instagram for whatever, and I didn't know where you were. So we took that assumption and we started running ads for her we had two different things. We had ads that explained what they were and were targeted to people around her. And then we had ads of people that were already engaged with her business that said literally where she was. Like, we're street from, here is our address, and it ran with an ad of the front, not this photo, a nicer photo, but the front of her business, like, oh, when you drive past now, stop in. We started there from assumption of, okay, who is our audience? And she knew who the people that she engaged most with is, but she didn't know how to find more of them. Okay, does anyone have cats? Okay, we have at least a few cats. I don't have cats. This is cat litter, or this is at least the Google returned image of cat litter. I don't know anything about cat litter besides like that's where the cats go to the bathroom, and it's always an issue for my friends to find an ideal place to put the litter box. So we have a client that is working on a new cat litter product. And it is a new type of product, and they're like, will people use this? They also don't know anything about cat litter. It is a byproduct of another product they already make. There's high profit margins in cat litter, in case anyone's interested in that industry. But yeah, so they have a whole other product area that they make, but they're like, we should get into the cat litter business. And so they needed to know, okay, who buys cat litter? Who are the people that do it? What kind of cat litter buy? Why do they buy that kind of cat litter? And then start building assumptions from there. So just internal to their team, they made a few assumptions. They assume that people care about price, the effectiveness of the smell. And then one of the guys had old cats and he tried it on his cats and it was an old cat and the cat wouldn't use the new litter. So he was like, old cats don't like this litter box. But that's a sample size of one. So that is not a good reason to make a business decision from. So we started being like, okay, where are the people that know about cats? And then where can we get this information from? So we did like interview slash observation and started going to a few pet stores. And the girl on our team that was working on this literally went to like Metro Pet Market or Pet Mart or whatever the places are called, and just started asking the cashiers, like, what is the most popular type of cat litter? Which one are people buying the most? And they started figuring out, okay, it's that black bag. People come through. Okay, we know which one's the most popular type of cat litter. And then so she started asking the people buying the cat litter, or like in the cat litter area, why are you buying this cat litter? What is it about it? And then people would give different reasons, like their price, the effectiveness, that much. So they narrowed it down to who their competitors were and why people like the cat litter they're buying. I don't have the end data on what the choice was there. But then they were like, okay, but does our product, they had to do some market research. They figured out the market research on the buyers of the cat litter, but then they do the market research of the users of the cat litter, so the cats. So they've given a bunch of cat litter to our one of the shelters here, one of the cat shelters here, and had the staff there with just like a straight up cats like it, cats didn't like it. It smelled more or less than our regular stuff. Yes, no. And what was the other one? Yes, no, and the cats liked it or didn't like it, and if the staff liked it or didn't like it. So something like super non-complex. It didn't take not a lot of effort, like a minimal amount of effort to do, just kind of mostly just putting yourself out there, I think, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do, approaching people in stores. But they've gotten a lot of good data that they can now use for their marketing. Like, cats love this the most. 8 out of 10 cats in the shelter preferred our cat litter over other cat litter. But they just started, again, kind of small. They used interviewing, and they used kind of some A/B testing with the cats at the shelter. And we were talking internally with our team about what examples to put in this workshop. And this one came up because it's kind of like a storied one in the marketing world. Did someone nod? I'm assuming most of us know this Got Milk campaign. I'm guessing most people were around in the 90s, 2000s. But this is iconic for many reasons. It just used a bunch of iconic celebrities. But the interesting thing about this is how this all started. So there's a man on a team from an agency in San Francisco, and they were pitching to the California Milk Processor Board, who wanted an agency to help them with selling more milk. And so they were like, okay, we need to figure out a way to get people more interested in milk in just general. We need to do a focus group. And they were like, okay, who are the people? The people are your regular, your regular everyday people. What do we want to know from the people? We want to know from them what their milk habits are and their feelings around milk. And as they were working through like talking about milk internally, they started building this assumption around milk deprivation. They were like, milk holds like a placeholder in people's life. What if they didn't have milk? So they had a focus group and they asked the people to not consume milk for a week leading up to the focus group. And then in the focus group, they started discussing what their week was like leading up without milk. And one guy shared a story about how he had woke up in the morning, got his regular cereal the first day, cut a bunch of bananas on it, and then realized that he couldn't put milk on it, and then had to make a moral choice of like, do I put water on this? Do I have the milk and not tell them? Do I throw it all out? That seems also terrible. What do I do here? And he shared that story, and then more and more people talked about how milk fit into their kind of like ritual of like, oh, I had a cookie and then I was missing milk. And that's the start of where the Got Milk campaign came from. I wrote down a cute anecdote because it was, as those people talked, this article I'd pulled for it, it said the absence of milk became noticeable. And that's where this campaign came from. They were like, okay, there are specific habits or like feelings people have where milk is missing. And if we can tap into that, we can tap into like getting some connection with people with milk and then give them, I don't know if you noticed, the campaign it was all Got Milk and it was celebrities with mustaches. But there was a lot of like really niche things on here around their industry about like the nutritional benefits of milk, or like this, like how much of your height is added. So they were able to get like all their messaging in there, but keep the message really simple about Got Milk. Does anyone have any questions about any of those? Or did they make sense? Or did I miss any of these, what we need to define from any of them? because I'm going to get you to do work next. So I want to talk about your market research. And I don't know why everyone joined this workshop. It could be just straight up curiosity. It could be, oh, how do I do this for my business? I'm hoping you're like chomping on some sort of problem that you want to solve or some curiosity you have about the customers that you serve. So we're going to do a completely non-scary group exercise. I say like completely non-scary. I don't, if any of you are like me, or like a completely recovered perfectionist that's willing to make a fool out of yourself. But if you're like past me, you're like, oh, I can't possibly share something imperfect with the crowd. So that's why I say this is a non-judgment zone. We're all just trying our best. We are gonna, and then we do this all the time internally. So I'm totally used to this. It's like, okay, what are we trying to figure out? And it's okay to go start imperfectly. It's okay to pick up the phone and call your friend that works in construction and just start asking them random questions on a Saturday morning. So what I'm going to give everyone like 10 minutes to sit down and answer these 3 questions for something you might be trying to, a piece of market research you want to understand in the world that you work in. What do you want to know? Who do you want to know it from? And what is your assumption or hypothesis or guess? And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 10 minutes to think about that. Actually, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about that. 6:40. I'm going to give you 7 minutes to think about that. That's a good compromise. And then we're going to talk about how many of us ended up here? 11. I'm one of them. Okay, we're going to do it as a group then. I don't think we need breakout groups. I want you to think about, there we go. Think about a method that you might use to explore these. And then we can share ideas together and potentially like share experiences like, oh, here's another way you could do this. And kind of use like this group genius that we have going on with a bunch of smart people in the room in a bunch of different industries to tackle, oh, you could do this, or you could get it from this information. And there might be something that comes out of this, because one thing we haven't talked about at all was all that secondary research, because there are some great places in this province to get secondary research. So I'm open to people sharing that, and I can share what I know too around that. So let's do 16:08, or what time is it? 6:43. I'll give you till then. That's 6 minutes. That's 7 minutes to answer these questions, and then we'll join. And when we come back, in our work world, we like to do things popcorn style. So I might call on someone if no one volunteers to go first. But if someone is willing to volunteer to go first, we can share as we feel called to. We don't have to go necessarily in a circle. But I'll give you to 18:43. It's 6:43. And I'll leave these questions up. Maybe I'll do one too. And if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat and I can monitor that. Or we can talk real loud about any of them. I appreciate your answer, Jessica. Okay, that is 6:43. Is anyone willing to share? Oh, Kapil? Or Kapil? Yeah, go for it. Thank you also.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Okay. So, okay, before I share this, can I quickly share what I do?
Yeah, that I was going to say, if you could share where you are and what you do, that'd be very good context, I think, for the rest of us.
Yeah, otherwise asking a question will not make any sense for that where it's coming from. Okay. So let me quickly tell you in three things, like a small story, not going to take much of time, but to make a sense in a sequence. While in the COVID time, 2020, my wife was quite ill, and she was recommended bed rest, complete bed rest from doctors. And also she was pregnant at that time for my second kid. So before that, I was not very much habitual of doing household chores and taking care of the baby. But that was a time when I had to take the responsibility because everything comes upon me, our business and also the family. And the business was very much affected because of COVID. So that time I had to choose one of the things. So I completely shut down my business and take care of my family. My girl that time was 3 years old, and my wife was pregnant, as I mentioned. So I learned everything from scratch, taking care of the kid, the cooking, washing, clothes, and everything and anything. Right. So it that time he was back in India. It took me a couple of months to get over the routine, but that was my biggest lesson of life, how difficult it is for a woman, specifically a mother, to do everything and anything, right? Taking care of all the responsibilities and all stuff. So that was something that triggers in me. From that point of time, I decided I will do something in my life pertaining to women, specifically mothers. Uh, After that, my wife was also, she says she's very habitual of reading and learning things. While she was on bed, she practiced a lot of healing therapies. So she became a healer over a period of time. And while I was taking care of the house stuff, over a period of 2 3 years, she became a quite popular healer. I was still taking care of house because I was very much attached to the household chores and the kids. So it was difficult for me to come out of that zone now. Then I decided I learned a lot of things that time, the coaching, the business coaching and training. So I'll help my wife to do the business parallelly, and I was also taking care of the house responsibility. That point of time, I decided I'll help mothers to build online business so that they can enjoy their motherhood along with having a good and bright career. That was first point. And later on, I realized for a mother, it is much more challenging than only for a career because the state of mind, when you have to handle multiple things, you have to handle multiple responsibilities, is not that you can focus on one thing. So I get myself trained and certified on life coaching, and then I decided to help mothers first to bring out their potential in terms of leaving their healing their mind, coming out of the stress, overthinking, procrastination, all the problems that comes from mind. I'll help mothers to come out of that first with simple talking, counseling, and teaching them how the mind works. And once they came up to their full potential, then they can go ahead and do the business online, which will help them further in career. So now coming back to this, what do I want to know? I want to know, since I have, okay, we moved to Canada almost 2 months back, right? And I came to Saskatoon then. See, I'm in a meeting and my kid is around. So the best example what I was saying there. Would you take please? Okay. Okay, so that's what is the learning. Quickly a minute, please. Just a minute. Let me get the popcorn. Get the popcorn. Get the popcorn. Add it around. Get the popcorn. Get the.
Kapil, do you want it? Do you want to take a second and then we can come back to you?
Yes, I'm done. I'm done. I'm
Okay,
done.
we can come back to you, but if you want to take care of the kids.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, he's sorted now.
Oh, okay, do you want to say what do you want to know and who do you want to know it from?
Yes. So I want to know is first, what are the pain points of mothers here in Canada? Because I was saying I moved to Canada 2 months back to Saskatoon, right? Since in India and in Asian countries, I've been there, so I have lived the life of a mother for a certain period of time. So I know what are the challenges we have there. But to know more and deep about my the mothers here in this culture, I want to know first what are the pain points of a mother in various aspects of life, like health, wealth, career, relationship, and personal life, personal development. So what are the real pains that a mother have, the real challenges that she face in her daily life, in these segment of life. Okay.
Okay.
Second, yeah, who do I want to know it from? Of course, mothers. Very clear from my first statement. And third, what assumptions I have. First, mother guilt. That's something I have, mother guilt that I've seen all around. Every mother who is putting her best effort of to doing everything still at any point of time or every point of time feel have somehow she have some guilt in her mind that she is not putting her best. Maybe in raising a child, maybe in um, pursuing in her career. Some other point she has some of the guilts still in her mind or in her heart. Second assumption which I have in my mind, the partners in these, I mean, in Canadian culture are very supportive. So they help a lot, specifically when it comes to household chores or taking the responsibility of kids. They are very participative and very active. These are two assumptions which I have. And the method which we want, which we is primarily because I think it cannot help be sorted by Google or somehow. So if the more I talk to mothers, the more I'll get to know about them. Provide them space, safe space to answer, and then
And did you have any thoughts on the best like market research method to start gathering information?
I still have to.
But do you have any thoughts about what the best way to start doing that would be?
The best way I believe is to talk to mothers because I
And
feel
like interviewing them, do you have like a, I guess what I'm pushing towards is like, okay, are you going to interview mothers? And then I would narrow down on like where are you going to find these moms? And then is there any specific traits about them? So are they also, if you even narrow down that focus further, so it's like, are they mothers that are also new to Canada because you kind of understand that target market more? And then get more niche on who those are because mothers is probably like 30% of our population. You're looking at a very, very, very wide audience. So I would narrow that down further and then figure out who you have access to interview. And then to survey, because you could survey a bunch of people. If you're part of like community groups or anything like that, you might have access to survey people, but then you can get maybe like qualitative interviews.
right. My only challenge is how to get into the community of women's. That's the only challenge because okay, West Kalau, that's perfect for me, but yeah, in the
Yeah,
community,
you start with community here, hey? You do have access to some people. Not right now.
yes. But you already given me access, so thank you for that.
Yeah, book. Everyone's got a Calendly. Maybe you could book time with them later.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else want to share?
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me. Thank you.
I can go if you want me to.
I would love you to.
All right. So my company is IMS Group, and that's Injury Management Specialist. So I'm a consulting firm. So my clients right now, I help them with any injured worker and getting them back to work. So whether that's getting them to doctor's rehab, figuring out their return to work with physio, those kinds of things, and then finding that to bring them back into the workplace. and then how to look after their WCB. So WCB is something every company has to have if you're going to work. And of course, an injured worker, all of that cost goes to the company's WCB account. So I help the workers, and then I help the company improve or maintain their WCB ratings in every board across Canada, because every province has a different board. So that's what I do. I do it in multiple industries. But what I want to know is, one, how to gain more clients. So I have about 30 clients right now, but again, how to gain more. I want to know how to compete with other consulting firms. So I'm a reasonably small firm, but I want to be able to compete because I think that my, my experience, my, again, working across the country in multiple industries, I want to know how to compete with them. And of course, I want to be able to increase revenue, obviously. Who do you want to know it from? So ideally, I'd like to know it from companies who are already using some of these bigger consulting firms, how to figure out if, what they're doing, how they're doing, if clients are happy with what's, with a service or a firm that they're using. I'd probably want to know it from typically it's the HR department who gets saddled with dealing with all WCB, whether they have training in it or not, but they always seem to be the department that gets it lumped on top of them. So, but I think that's ideally who I would want to know it for, because that's the people who are managing it. My assumption right now is that one, like I said, the HR departments in every company are typically the ones who are expected to do it, whether they have any kind of training or have any kind of understanding other than just filling out the form. So that's my assumption as to why I don't see that come into the market, I think. And then companies use well-known firms. So I think that it's an assumption that, having WCB, having injured workers is just the cost of doing business. So it's something I think a lot of companies they assume they have to have it. They assume that people will get hurt, and they assume that what they pay at WCB is just it's just a cost of doing business. So they don't know that there's firms like myself who come out and can improve it. So improve their WCB, but also make their company so that if someone gets hurt, that I show them how to take care of them, get them back to work faster, get them into the right programs. Again, that increases their company's morale when someone gets hurt and you help them get back to work. I think it increases a lot. So my assumption is, again, a lot of it comes down to price, and maybe that market reputation with WCB as a cost of doing business, or maybe it's the assumption that these bigger firms they're doing something, whether they're doing anything, whether they're extremely efficient or not. But I think that's where I am. And I think as far as like methods, the only thing I can think for how I might be able to look at this is maybe like a survey, I feel like, of companies who are using a consulting firm for their injury or their WCB management, would be maybe something like that, to see if they're using an external provider, and then how to determine whether or not that's working. But that's sort of what I feel for mine.
Thank you for volunteering to share and sharing. I appreciate that a lot. When you said what you want to know, and it was like how to gain more clients, my first thought was you should ask the clients that you have. That would be like my first, and I guess we're in a client-based business too, and that's the first place we go. When I was doing my own little exercise, we're working on some more formal surveying of our clients. But once we started to figure out why our clients were with us specifically, that began opening up us better targeting people that would be a fit with us. And then we have more loyal clients that are willing to pay for the services that we offer. So my first instinct, and we can have a discussion around this, was doing qualitative interviews with the clients that you already have. And then this is a marketing part, but referrals are always the best, the freest. You probably already know this, but referrals are the freest marketing you'll ever find, and one of the most valuable pieces of marketing.
Yeah,
because that holds a lot of weight.
well, typically I have, like, when clients find me, it's because of word of mouth, and because some company has already used me to help because they had a complex claim, an injured worker who was just really, they were struggling with how to get them back to work or what to do, or it was a fraud claim or something like that. It's always something that was like one claim, and then they said, hey, why don't you phone Sheila and she might be able to help you out. And that's typically how I gain clients. It's just sort of one at a time. So I don't really market what I do, which is again where I need to break through, is taking, competing with the other guys when I'm, a smaller firm.
That was my other thought, is around the well-known firms. Are they just being used? The assumption is companies just use well-known firms, but are they using them just because they have to have something, and they is it like the easiest is it the easiest way to solve a problem?
It is. So in some provinces, it's mandated now that you have to have somebody or some firm to start managing your WCB. So that has gained a lot of work for me, but then the bigger companies can take a much more market share than I can. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing a better job. It just means they are bigger and can compete at a higher level, I think, at this point. So it's sort of that you're trying to grow the business, but you can't grow without work. And you're trying, so I'm growing really, well for a small firm, but not, you need to take that next jump up there to go, I think, too. So
to scale.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts for Sheila?
Sorry, just for Sheila.
Yeah.
My apologies. I was just going to make note that we have someone in the chat, but I don't want to move on too quickly.
No, that's okay. My always first instinct is to try to understand why the customers we have or why they're with us, and then use that information to go after new clients and to target clients that are potential fit. So if you figure out, they've had a bad experience claim, then you can use that to then use that as part of your marketing. Like, hey, if I was here, or if I was your consultant during this period, this would have gone this way. Or maybe it's the size of company that is easiest to change over. Like, maybe all of your clients are in a size amount, X to X amount of employees.
Yeah. It's interesting. Anyway, you have to start somewhere.
I'm trying to think of any other market research methods that would be helpful in that instance. I even just after a claim has gone through, follow up. But is anyone else willing to share? Or there's something in the chat you said, Janelle.
Yeah, I can read it out. And then if you, Sheila, does that feel good? Sorry, I didn't want to move on too quickly from your...
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. So Elaine put in the chat, this is more of a fundraising scenario, so I hope it still fits. I recently was hired as the administrator for a local hospital foundation to raise funds to build a new hospital. We have roughly 7.3 million in the bank with much more to raise. We don't have a municipal contribution, but let's say it's 15 million. What do I want to know? How to raise 8 million in less than 3 years. Who do I want to know it from? I am making friends with the hospital foundation CEOs of 3 major hospitals in Saskatoon. They are bringing in millions of dollars every year into their hospitals. I am also researching every hospital foundation website in Western Canada. When I go to events or conferences, I'm taking note as to what companies or individuals are donors or sponsors. What is my assumption? chances are the 3 CEOs of the Saskatoon Hospital Foundations will share some best practices on how to attract donors with deep pockets. And then there was like a little bit of discussion between Jessica, but just kind of talking about how we could connect with professional fundraisers, any strategies for those sorts of things.
Yeah, that was mine. Like, your target market is people that have done this before, maybe just not necessarily in the hospital industry. And that's one thing that we see happen a lot, is that we get so niche down into our industries. Like, we have an engineering firm and they're like, well, you've never done this for our specific type of extraction before. And it's like, yeah, but we've done this for like other things that can look like the same type of methods you would use for marketing or explaining lithium extraction. That's where I would start with. That is, what other type of, maybe it's not healthcare, maybe it's not specific to health, to hospitals. You have a large, that's a not a small goal, raising 8 million in 3 years. My other question too there would be like, why do people donate? Like, what makes people donate? Is it some sort of like, are people donating because it's like a visual thing? Are people donating because of a healthy tax write-off? Are people donating because they have some sort of connection? And sometimes it's multiple things that we find in the marketing world. You can target each of those audiences with different messaging. But what makes people donate a large sum of money? Because you figure that out and then you're like, okay, this type of person donates a large type of money because of this. So we need to offer them that value. But this type of person is different. Anyone else have any ideas for that or want to share their own?
I'll share.
Okay. Kristen?
Honestly, I think I kind of relate to Shelly a bit because I'm a really small company. But really what I want to know is how I can be more known and like how families can find me. Because I've never done marketing. All my stuff is word of mouth. Like every single one of my clients is word of mouth or from another therapist or anything like that. So I really want to know, like, what are the big things that families are struggling with when it comes to development and stuff like that, so I can create programs or classes or education to kind of meet that need. So that's kind of like what I would like to know. And like, I don't see injuries. My niche market is children and child development. That's who I see. So I don't have this broad demographic that I would be, well, not necessarily. If we talk babies, then I guess it could be every baby if they need me. But, and so I think like, who do I want to know it from? Like how, if I look at what Shelley says is like, how did people find me? Well, it's all been word of mouth. And I track that because I can track it through my booking software. So the majority is word of mouth or other practitioners. I get very few hits from Google. I get very few hits from social media. So I just like, I guess my assumption is parents, like, how are they searching? My assumption is, I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's where I'm struggling. And I know it kind of doesn't really fit all the questions, and I'm having a really hard time even like trying to answer the questions.
Fair. Your assumption is people hear about you from word of mouth. But I guess my first question would be like, where are those words of mouth coming from? Because you have like patients with like probably pretty niche issues. Are they in like groups with other parents? Are they like, where are they getting that information? That would be my question.
Honestly, I do some mom groups, but it's from friends. Word of mouth, friends from friends from friends from friends.
It's people problem solving.
Yeah, people or other therapists that I've worked with before that are like, oh, you need to go see this person. She's really good at this.
Oh, yeah. So then it is also like it could be like referrals somehow.
Yes, referrals,
A little
yeah.
bit. And then do they book with you just because you're the only option or because you're the best option?
I am not the only option. But that's new. Like I've recently brought on another therapist who is also fantastic. Um, but I have had some families even since then that will actually wait for my schedule to open up to come and see me.
So are you the only option in the city that offers this?
No, there's also kids physio, but they're a little bit more broad. So
Okay.
they'll do like pediatric injuries and stuff like that, where I don't do injuries. I just do child development. I do a lot more collaborative work with other professions like speech and occupational therapy and stuff like that, that they don't do. So yes, I'm the only one that does what I do, but no, I'm not the only therapy clinic that only does kids.
Okay.
Can I confuse you more?
No, I'm working through this because I'm thinking like, okay, the assumption is people that need you find you. There are people out there that might need you that haven't gotten a referral to find you. So it's like a bit of a brand awareness problem. People don't know that you exist until they do, and then they're happy that they've found you. Is there potential there from then like exploring where you could put your brand in places where people are?
Yes. So like some like reclaim maternity, I often do some groups and stuff there with them, and then so they have a stack of cards and stuff like that. But things like that, it's like it's amongst a whole bunch of other places. So I'm really struggling to be like, where is the best place to like figure that out? Because I've done things like groups, they haven't really taken off. I'm like, okay, well, that didn't really work. I feel like I'm doing lots of shots in the dark because it's really hard to kind of suss out that information.
Yeah, you want to know. It is. And do you have like specific things that you offer that people are after? Is it like I'd start like probing into, is there language that people use when they come to you?
Oh,
Like is there, this is completely not in your industry, but the person with the potion bar with the
yeah.
Korean skincare shop, we ran ads for her based on what was trending on TikTok, which
Oh,
is like there was like a specific sunscreen that was trending on TikTok and she was the place in the city that you could get it. But it's like, what is there a trend in child development that people are after? Is there
yes.
language that the general population is using? Um, is there
Okay.
or are there things that like, do you have, yeah. Or is like, yeah, are all of your clients aware of all of the services that you offer? Like, is there potential for like more referrals to come out of that?
Maybe. Not a ton because I think most people are accessing everything they need until I expand my services anyways, at least. But yes. And like even social, we do lots of education on social media and stuff like that, but it doesn't really seem to go anywhere really. So, and I think it's just because our audience isn't that wide, but so then I feel like if I go and try and just talk to my current clients, they're going to be like, well, so and so referred me, and that's how I found you. And it's not going to like, how do I?
Yeah, that's fair. And can you probe into that further? Because people often default to word of mouth, but they've seen other things like, oh, but I also saw it like on this Facebook group and your card's here, but then someone gave me the last push and been like, go to this person.
Maybe, maybe. And I probably could actually add that into my software so it would come up that way as well. Like they could pick two.
Yeah. But sometimes that conversation often yields more than that. Like you can, yes, totally.
Yes. Yeah.
But then just like the click. We always say in marketing, there's like a classic example of someone being like, oh yeah, I heard about your business from the billboard. And the business wasn't actually running billboards because people do this where they like see a social media ad, then hear radio and then make up a billboard in their mind. Or make up a radio ad in their mind, and it's happened before. Or they're like confusing them with another business, but they drive past the one all the time, and then they hear a radio ad for a competitive bike shop. And they're like, oh yeah, I always hear your radio ads. I just throw that in there to confuse everything. But
There are a couple of suggestions in the chat too.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
I
So
can't see the chat. Yeah.
Elaine asked if you could advertise in doctors' offices, like, or like other physicians, like not necessarily competing, but like put like up maybe like physical like advertisements in like healthcare offices or spaces. And then Kapil said, I think you could educate parents on social media about the different concerns and how you can help like assist with those such things, just with the services that you offer. And then Jessica suggested, could you ask your client how it came up, etc., and like who shared your information, and like get some details in that way. And then Sheila said, are your services covered? I don't know what that means.
Covered, sorry.
Covered.
I can't
Covered,
say that.
okay. I was like, maybe this is just like an industry thing.
Sometimes it's like the money, right? If they know it's covered under SaskHealth or Blue Cross, makes it a lot easier for them to, again, it's that price, that costing again, and whether or not it's covered under a health spending account or SaskHealth or something like that. If there's a referral to you, that's a big check mark for a lot of people. If they know already, they can direct bill or something. Sometimes that helps. It's a big key.
Yes. So SaskHealth, no, because there's public services, so we're private pay. But yes, insurance they cover our services just like physio, because it's just listed under physio. So anybody that has physio private health, yes, absolutely. Doctors' offices, we have tried. I find most of the stuff that we send to doctors' offices just get recycled. They often don't even make it to like the specific doctor or past the receptionist, which sucks, but.
My other question would be, the people that are giving referrals are the parents that are seeking services for their kids. Are they getting a referral for a specific thing that they know they need, or are they like, my kid is, I have no clue your world, but like my kid's foot is weird when they walk. Yes, and then someone being like,
some of both. Most families are coming because they have a specific concern, like, oh, they walk funny, or they're not rolling yet, or they have a funny shaped head, or they're not jumping, or they have they know that they were born with a diagnosis and they want more support than they can access through public services. So they want better service. Essentially, they're looking for better service. Sometimes it's a referral of this other therapist was like, oh, you need to look at this because I think this is not going well, or they seem to fall out of their chair or whatever. They seem weak. I do get some of those more general ones, but most of the time, I'd say about 80% of the time, it's a specific, we're coming because of this. I want my kid to do ABC.
What's the community like of like practitioners like yourself? Like, do you have like a community of people that you kind of like rally together and you can refer people to one another, or like there's spaces where you can like it's more competitive, or?
Yes and no. So I don't refer to other physiotherapists, but I refer outside to other practitioners like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and stuff like that. Right. Ethically, we're not allowed to refer to specific practitioners. That's within our code of ethics. Gotcha. Just like I can't, when I advertise, I can't imply that I am better than any other practitioner. Like, we have certain rules that we have to follow. Totally. So I can say, oh, I think you would benefit from speech. And if they ask, I can say, here's a list of speech pathologists that you can connect with and see if one can see you. Right. So, but I can't just be like.
But do you find that you're on those lists of other people? Like, is that a way that you generate? Okay. Yeah. I'm wondering like how that you could grow that community within those parameters, but.
Yes. For the most part, I think there's a couple that I could reach out a little bit more maybe. So that would be something I could definitely do and just connect a little bit closer. I do have the benefit of working with a lot of them because I've been doing it for so long. In some capacity, I've met at least a therapist from every single clinic in the city at some point along the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because if they're referring out to you, that's like the parents go to physiotherapy for adults.
yes. Well, and I think the other tricky thing is that parents don't know that it's available. So that's, yes. So that's the other thing. And it's like, so I try to Google ad because I was like, well, I'm sure people Google.
Yeah.
That I didn't get nothing. I got a couple clicks, no conversions. So I'm like, I don't know how much I want to spend with doing that when it's like, they'll click and say, oh, that's nice, and move on.
That's fair. I will say we always treat Google ads like billboards,
Yes.
as in like people are going to see them. Don't expect people to click on them.
Yes, and that's fair. That's fair. So now it's like, so where do I go and put my money or my, for lack of a better term, my face?
Your time and effort.
Yes, like where do I focus with that?
I would dig into where you're getting referrals from and then like pick one of them, like make an assumption from there. It's like, oh, it's mostly from these groups, or what kind of parents, which is a weird way. Like if you were going to target an ad on social media, like at least in the city of Saskatoon, you have like a small data set. Like it's not a huge sample population, but you can target like parents with a specific, I don't know, within a specific area or like close near your business, or you can sometimes target like education level if you think that's a thing, or you can target, is it typically the female partner, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to be conscious of time. Yeah,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
ask. There are a couple questions. There are a couple questions for Kristen, but if we want to just like put a pin in that, and just about kind of like look, Peel asked what age group of kids you deal with, and then Sarah suggested, or she said, are there families in other cities or surrounding towns who would want to access your services? Is that a potential market you could tap into, or is it just, do you think there are a lot of people in Saskatoon that you just still aren't reaching?
The latter. I do go up to North Battleford to help them, but I think there's still lots of families that just don't know. So, yes.
I want to be conscious of time. I think this was the end point of this was 7. I'm happy to hang out here. Does anyone, if you want to go, I'm more than happy to let you go. Obviously, you probably all worked a full day, and now you're here hanging out. We can throw in the chat, or if anyone else wants to share, I'm happy to listen to that too and facilitate that as well.
Will be recorded, so for anybody who wants, I don't know if Jessica might be able to speak to this. I don't know if the question and answer portion will be included in the recording, but everything that was covered in Sabrina's presentation is included in the recording. So if people do need to leave.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I just have a question. So do you think that you have to have several touch points, I guess, that people interact with before they come to you? Or do you think there is, I guess I've heard that they often will see an ad maybe, and then they come to your website, and then they, and it takes several interactions before they actually buy from you or hire you or whatever it is. Or is there do you feel that you should really try to have more of a single focused thing, kind of like what we're discussing here today?
Oh yeah. In the world of sales and marketing, they always say I feel like every 5 years the number goes up. Like you have to tell someone 7 times before they're going to remember, and then I've heard it go up to 9 times before they're going to remember. So yeah, we always see value in multiple touch points. When we work with a professional media buying agency who that's their only, like they just buy media, and usually it's we need to hit people at least 7 times before we even count a value of an impression. They won't run campaigns thin. So it's like, oh, everyone's seen this ad once. That doesn't matter. That then they technically just haven't seen the ad. But I would also say there's more or less value in some things. So like in social media, I'm thinking in your world for interior design, in social media, if I have a friend that uses an interior designer's services and then tags them in something, that is like a way more weighted impression than if someone saw like an ad from a person. And then you asked a question about like across different places. We in our world in marketing, we tend to count things as like out of home and in home. Social media has done a weird thing where those are kind of like, things are kind of billboards, but it is really in home. So like a billboard is out of home. You need to hit where you have a lot of noise, but now we have this weird device that's even noisier and that's in our hands. But I kind of count that like an ad on social media feels like out of home, like a billboard in the fray of like your daily life, where if it's like something organic and you follow someone, that's more like in home. It's like, oh, you got this thing in the mail and you're looking at it and you're touching it and you're interacting with it more. And that has more weight. I'm always conscious of spend in business too. So a few things we've done with businesses that don't have a huge budget, for example, to spend on social media, is I've run a brand awareness campaign for them. So we're just getting as many touch points in front of people as we can. Like, this business exists, this business exists, this business exists. And then we run a conversion campaign for them. So then after we've hit an audience with like, this business exists, and we did this with the cleaning company. This cleaning company exists. You're probably looking for cleaning companies. You might be in market already. Here's one that exists, because we know like familiarity makes people more likely to convert. And then we hit them with a conversion campaign. It was then switched to like book now. You've already know that this exists, and now you're being prompted to book now. Which for the cleaning company is like, it's getting close to Christmas. Maybe you are hosting people. Book your first cleaning now. Or it was actually back to school for that one. It's like, oh, we're hitting them around a time where like that's happening. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And the social media world is so weird and has really like messed all that data up. But that's where like the people are more and more aware of advertising and more resistant to it. And in social, that's why we always push for more like we'll do ads very we do our ads very like polished and professional, but then we'll push for like more organic content on like stories, or yeah, mostly stories in the way that people are used to like kind of getting that organic content. Anything else? This part is fun. I wish we could hang out all day and talk about it. I guess this is my job, so I enjoy it. I'm also so hyper aware of how overwhelming it can be when you're like the sole person doing it too, because I've been in that position, and it's hard because there's so much noise. And I even noticed that when we were distilling it down to like, what do you want to know and who do you want to know it from? A lot of you were like, I want to know all these things, which is fair. That's always the thing. That's why it's nice to have like a sober and second thought party on the outside. And it's like, okay, but what's the one thing? And then where can we start like testing that? And you're not always right. You make an assumption and then you're completely wrong. And the thing in our world is I don't want it to cost people a lot of money. So that's why I'm usually like, press on those assumptions. Like, are we sure? How much? And then how much is it going to cost us to test? Like, is it just going to cost us walking to PetMart and seeing what kind of cat litter are people buying? Or are we going to like set up an online store and like try to sell a bunch of cat food or cat litter without having tested it a little bit more? So I'm always conscious of that, especially for, sole business owners. Does anyone else want to share? Or does anyone else have any questions? Anissa?
Yeah, I really like the discussion, and like at this point, I'm just collecting information like tactics, how things are done. But you mentioned also like, oh, we ran this brand awareness or whatever, like, oh, this business exists. Can you expand more, a little bit more on it? What does that mean in your world? Like, how does like, or what tactics did you use to, advertise like, hey, this is like, we exist. So would you be able to expand a little bit more on it? Give me just a couple more ideas or something.
Yeah. Okay. So in that specific instance of like the cleaning company, this business exists on Meta. So on Facebook and Instagram, you can run campaigns and then choose the objective for how those campaigns run. And then that will determine who your ads are shown to. So in that instance, you can choose like brand awareness, and the objective measure for that campaign is like, it is being shown to people that are likely to be able to recall it. And it's the creepy world of like AI learning and the internet of like, oh, we now know people are like pausing an extra second on this, or like they have all these metrics, the way they measure it. Or so you can run ads for brand awareness. You can run them for like engagement, so people like liking or commenting. You can run ads for traffic. So in that campaign we ran brand awareness. I want people to be able to recall seeing this business. And then we ran a traffic campaign, which is like, I want to run this ad to people that are most likely to click on this button. And then they can measure the click. You can also measure like the click through all the way to the website, but the way that cookie laws are changing and like privacy laws, it's not as, for the best, probably, not in my world, but for just humans in general, it's not as accurate as it used to be. The other thing I think of like when it's brand awareness is like, outside of digital media, just straight up, like, are you telling people to do something? Or are you telling them you exist? So are you putting up like postcard portables, like those small little billboards saying like, my business is on the corner of X and X? So it's like, are you a bike shop and people don't know where you are because you're in like an area that people don't have traffic that frequent? Maybe your biggest problem is people are looking for a bike shop, they just don't know where to go. Or brand awareness, kind of where Kristen is, like, do people know you exist? Does the audience that's looking for you know you exist? And what kind of services they might need from you? So that's where I use like the term brand awareness. Are they just aware of your brand, or they're looking for an interior designer? They're already down the marketing funnel of like, I already tried Pinterest, and then my house is a bunch of horrid colors. I need an interior designer. I also like need someone to figure out the codes and like do all this, and I don't know how to do any of it. I'm further, I'm going to go into construction, and then like, okay, now I'm looking just for brands. And if someone in that world already has brand awareness, you're the more likely person for them to click, if they're already in front of you before you're making those decisions. Is that helpful?
Yes, it does actually, because you just hit on 2 points. But like, what do you want your brand awareness to people to do? Like, buy something from you, or just to know that there is this kind of service exists? So that's a good split. Like, sometimes I have to think about like, you have really like, I think like, I mean, I have to like put all these things out. I have to dumb it down like to the finest details that I sometimes don't think, but like other people really have that great ideas like that I don't. I'm just big picture, and like I have to like be in a moment, and sometimes I think that's my problem. So, but this
Well, and the
does help a
hardest
lot.
part about being in your business is you know way more than everyone else. Like, you know way more about your business than anyone else, so you have no clue like where they're even starting from or what people are looking for.
Right. And when I talk simple, which I think it's simple, people go like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, obviously I'm losing them, right? Obviously I don't connect, because after all what I say or pamphlets or whatever, like I explain, they go, and what do you really do? I'm like, okay, that's obviously like I am totally like out for lunch. So I'm like, what do I do here? So I have to like, I understand it. I think it's simple, but it's not. And then like I have to understand like how people think and what people think. And like I just have to see people's perspective, not just from my perspective, right? So that's one thing that I guess I have to learn to see it through other people's eyes as well. So
well, and people don't always like the value that you hold for yourself as a business isn't always the overlap with the value of why people utilize a business. Someone in the webinar worked in massage therapy. And I've been thinking about it a lot because things just stick in my brain, but I'm like, people think maybe a massage therapist thinks they're doing an exceptional job of their job, which they very well might be, but the person that books them because it's close to their office, or because the conversation is always interesting, or there's no conversation, or like very specific things, they direct bill or something easy that they don't know about. They're like, oh, they could be a phenomenal massage therapist, and that might be why they've stayed, but that might not be the reason they originally went there.
Yeah. So there's lots more to understand the customer better. But I mean, I also have to be careful not to go into the weeds and like you can't understand every single one. But I gotta find a niche, right? And then how to hit majority or like a large scale or something, right? But this is really good conversations and good things for me to think about anyway. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, my hope was that us all sharing our problems together would like help everyone, because there was no way to cover all of the like different businesses that y'all work in and like do it in a way that was valuable for everyone. So that I hope you got something out of this. If nothing, the synthesizing things down to making an assumption and finding a way to test it. What I find when we get into market research is it often starts getting into how to do the marketing part of it, which further down the line kind of thing. But I'm going to call it here just because we're at 7:30. I appreciate all of your time a lot. Like, and I also just, those of you that had your camera on, this is just, and spoke, filled me up. Like the webinar was wonderful, but I just talked to my computer and I didn't see anyone's, the faces didn't even exist. There wasn't even squares for people. I just knew that maybe there were people listening. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you spending it with me. I hope you got some value out of this, and I wish you all luck. I would love to spend some time in a room. I'm sad that lots of you are in Saskatoon, so if you ever need your services, I mean, I can hire out of Saskatoon, that's fair. But thank you very much.